So hi, in this video I'm going to explain you or show you actually how I'm going to migrate the three-tier application that we just created in one of my previous video from one SDDC to another SDDC. So here you can see the vCenter server where my three-tier app is actually on, and we're going to migrate this application to another SDDC, so to another vCenter server. And we're going to use layer 2 extension for that, HCX layer 2 extension, just to make sure. So this is the other vCenter server, and you can see it's empty. So you will see that the label is switching in the corner between blue and red, and this is just to indicate on what side I am working on currently. So here you can see I'm working on the EMEA SME demo SDDC. And before we're going to start, we're first going to look at the application is actually currently internet facing. So we're going to look at the IP address that's currently resolving to. So as you can see, I've got a DNS server, and that DNS server www.hcx.nu points to that IP address over there. Now let's do an NS lookup quickly and verify or a ping towards the actual DNS name, and you can see that it's resolving to the 3.11.223.241, right? So currently ICMP is blocked, so that's why it's not working, but port 80 is currently open, so we should be able to browse to that URL at this point. So here you can see the actual application working and accessible from the actual internet. So if we go to the HCX console, we can create a network extension from one side to the other side. So let's start with extending the networks that I actually want to extend. And it's important to extend the app, database, and the web. And type in a prefix land over there. So you need to put in a gateway address over there. So that means that if you extend a network, the gateway will still live on the originating side. So you can move the VMs to the other side, but the gateway will still live on the side where you actually migrate the VMs from. So here you can see that my gateway is still on the blue side actually. And even though I'm going to migrate my VMs to the red side, the gateway will still be on the blue side. So the traffic will be hairpinned to the blue side. So let's extend the networks then. It's easy at that. So you can see that it's extending, and eventually the extension will be completed. And from this moment on, you will get on the other side, on the red side, you will see that the port groups are actually are created. But before we are doing this, we can start the migration here. And we're going to select the actual VMs, so the database VM, the app VM, and the web VMs. I think I have two of them. Yeah, there you go. We can select those, and before we're actually going to do migration, we first need to select some resources where we're going to place it. So basically I'm going to place in that resource pool. I don't have a destination folder ready, but I will just place in the workloads folder. And storage I have to select, so this is going to be the vSAN storage on the other side. And eventually I also need to select the migration method, which is going to be vMotion for now. So let's hit finish. It's giving me a warning, which is a strange warning. I don't know what to do with it, but let's migrate the VM. So here you can see that the VMs are currently actually being migrated from one side to the other side. And if we wait for a while, then let's fast forward. You can see that the status is actually currently the migration is actually queued for now, and HCX will determine by itself when it's going to move over the VMs. So here you can see the first one, and every VM here is now actually migrated. So I did fast forward, and every VM is currently successful migrated, right? So you can see the green check boxes, and if you go to the vCenter server, the original one, you can see that my 3-tier app vApp is actually completely empty now. Where we first had 4 VMs under my resource pool is empty now. If you go to the other side, you can see that the actual VMs are now moved over to the other side. So this was the actual vMotion migration, actually fast forwarded, right? Because it took I think around 6 minutes per VM. When we go to the actual VM or the actual website, we can still hit refresh and the website is still working. So even though I've migrated it over to the other side, we can still see everything is still working. Just to make sure it's not taking it from caching, just open another browser window and let's try to open the website again. And here we can see that it's still working. So it's actually hairpinning the traffic from one VMC on AWS SDDC to the other one, and this makes sure that it still works. So the default gateway still lives on the actual blue side, and the red side, the VMs are living on the red side right now. So you can see that the migration was successfully, the layer 2 extension is working fine. Let's continue with the demo. So now when we go to the console, and this is the red side, so this is the side that we're actually migrated our VMs to and not from, we need to take care of some networking. So here you can see that initially when I want to fully migrate the application, the first step is to, well, create the segments, right? So I'm going to try to create a segment where I'm going to specify a gateway or a new gateway on the local side, and let's try to do that. So let's hit save, and here you see that I'm getting a warning, and it says here, the message actually, that I cannot create a new segment because the subnet is already in use. And why is it in use? Because of the layer 2 extension segments. And here you can see that it's already reserved the actual subnet as an extension. So there's no way to create a new segment with the same IP address ranges or same gateway. So here you can see that my VMs is also using these segments, right? The layer 2 extension, the L2E stands for layer 2 extension, and you can see that my VMs are actually using that. So how do you need to solve this? Well, the only way how to solve this is by going back to the HCX manager and look at the extensions again. And well, now there's actually going to be some downtime. So let's hit start in the stopwatch, and we're going to unextend the actual networks. So let's do this one by one. So we select the app first and then unextend it, and we're going to do the same for the database. and we're going to do the same for the web. And now we're making sure that the other side will not have the L2 extended networks. And at this point, when we've got the networks unextended, here we can see refresh. We can refresh it again to make sure that they are really not there anymore. And the one that's currently there, it was already one that was already configured, so we're not touching that. And now we've got the networks unextended, right? So let's try to see if they're still there. And they're still there, but they are now actually disconnected. So let's delete them. And now you can see, well, my VM is currently attached to it, so I'm not able to delete it, which is fine. So at this point, we just need to make sure that, or I tried actually to disconnect the actual NICs from there. And this is, I guess, something you will do as well. Or we just change the network around. And I was pretty quick with this, so let's try to unattach or disconnect the actual network adapter, and let's try to delete them again. And here you can see it's still not possible doing it, right? So my next step was to try to create a new dummy segment, which there are multiple ways of doing this, but I chose for some reason to create a new dummy network and to make sure that every VM of my web app and database tier was going to be moved over to the dummy segment. So I was pretty sure that the other networks, the layer 2 extension networks, were not used anymore. So the reason why, and this is, I can tell you this, the reason why during the unextension, the actual port groups or the segments, the layer 2 extension segments, were not deleted automatically was because of the VMs for currently using them. So you will see that if you're following the steps in the order that I just did, you will see that the L2E networks are currently not removed because they were in use by the actual VMs. So what I'm going to do right now, I need to remove them manually, but before I can remove them, I need to change the actual network adapter to another port group that I just created. So this is the last one. And now we can see that every VM of mine is in the dummy port group, and we can now start deleting them. And you can see, let's do them one by one. And now we are ready to create some new segments. A web app and database segment needs to be recreated on the new side. So let's do that. And if you you remember that I created a stopwatch. So basically, or I started a stopwatch, and this is still time that's still counting. So my application is still not reachable. So for the app segment, we also need to recreate the gateway and the segment on the local side. And now it's time to, now that we have created the segments, it is good to actually assign the VMs to these new segments. And I'm quickly doing a check to see if everything has the correct port group or segment assigned. So now our next step is to quickly go over and try to see if our website is still working, and you can see it's not working anymore, right? Because we've changed, or we've removed the layer 2 extension, and we have created new port groups. So in order to make it work again, we need to make sure that we assign a public IP address and a new net rule on the new site in the console. So let's try to do that first. And let's go to public IPs and request a new public IP address. And let's use that IP address inside a network address translation rule. Let's make sure that we are only netting port 80 and the internal IP address, which is 172.16.40.101. And now we've created a net rule. Now let's also create one more thing, because there also needs to be a gateway firewall rule, right? So here we can see the net rule where you translate the public to private, and the gateway firewall rule, which is not there yet, which we've already created in my last video on the other side. And now we are going to recreate that same firewall rule. So our security policy needs to be recreated on this side. And again, everything from the internet, our destination is going to be, and here I think we've already created a new or a web server group, but we can create a new one. So initially this would not exist, but right now we just going to create a new VM group, and we're going to select the VMs. In my last video I used a different method, but this one is easier, I think. We just select the virtual machine, place that into the group, and hit save, and that means that everything in that group is allowed from the internet. So let's look at the actual service, which is HTTP. And this is the service that we actually want to open, and hit publish. And from this moment on, the IP address is reachable from the internet, right? So let's test it out. the DNS name is not working, still not working, right? And here you can see that my DNS record on the internet is still pointing to the old IP address. So let's delete that and add in the new IP address of the new site. And let's copy that IP address and paste that, and here you can see my website is now reachable through the IP address. But initially we want to make sure that it's reachable through the actual DNS name. So let's do the do a Dns Cache Refresh from our local machine. And let's try to ping to that new DNS name. And here you can see that it is still not working, but it takes a while before DNS is propagated, right? So let's wait for a while. I will pause the video, and eventually I will try it again. At some point now we can see that our website is reachable through our new DNS name or new DNS record. And when we ping again, we can see that the IP address actually changed to another IP address, right? First we had something ending with 241, and now we have something ending with 43, right? So this took like 15 minutes and 15 seconds. So if we go back, if you want to do it nicely, we go back to the other side, and we're making sure, I guess we need to do this, is that we need to clean up our our configuration on the other side. So here we can go to the net rule, and we can start removing the net rule just to have a clean environment, because our application is now fully migrated from one side to the other side, and it took us around 15 minutes. And I think this could be done faster. So let's release the actual public IP address as well. I think the actual migration can be done a lot faster, because you've seen we made a few mistakes. We also need to remove the firewall as well, just to keep our firewall policy clean. And this could be done a lot faster. I reckon that this action could probably be done under 10 minutes, maybe even under 5 minutes. So now our environment is clean. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for next video.